there were some shakeups this week. LSU lost, which took them out of my top 10. Georgia also did not look good against Auburn. And you made a change here with your top 10. Who, just read out for the podcast, people listening on podcasts and everybody watching, read out your top 10 for the people.
My top 10 is as follows: Michigan, Georgia, Florida State, Ohio State, Texas, Washington, Oregon, Penn State, USC, and Washington State at number 10, like last week.
All right. So, listen, I'm going to be a little bit more reserved and keep this really quick and short on my Washington thing, okay? I do think that Penn State deserves to be above Washington. Here's why. Nobody and their mama watched Arizona last week versus Washington. What we see is, oh, hell, Michael Penix is going off. Joey is. I can't defend that. But like I told you yesterday, and like I will tell you again today, they have glaring weaknesses defensively that a team like Oregon, a team like USC, and others can expose. I saw that last week against Cal on film and brought it up on this show. Penn State, I do not see a lot of those weaknesses. Now, I will admit, I'm with you on, I don't know if Penn State has the weapons outside, but they had one bad half, okay? They had a bad half against Northwestern Saturday. But you know what happens? They adjusted. They started getting on rhythm in the second half. And you know what's so crazy to me? You know what's so wild to me? It's like a team can't have a bad half. Now, Washington didn't have a bad half. They had a bad game. Not offensively. Defensively, they had a really, really bad game. I saw that Arizona. By the way, let me just add this. With a backup quarterback, Arizona with a backup quarterback is a touchdown away from tying that game driving late. Okay. So there are, just in my opinion, until I can see them defensively get better, there are question marks, because there's going to be a time, Joe, where there's a defense, Oregon, that's out there that can slow them down somewhat, that if you don't have your defense hitting on all cylinders, you can be in trouble. Is that better than last week?
Yeah, a little more or a little less
aggressive.
That's the word I'm looking. Yeah, aggressive. Yeah, I would say. I completely disagree, though. I do understand that they played poorly against Arizona, which is why I moved them back. And I thought that movement was justified based on the performance. They played like shit against a backup quarterback. You have to make that movement. But my problem with Penn State is, yes, they had a bad half against Northwestern, but they have one of the most glaring holes, I think, out of any of the top 10 teams. They don't have any receivers. They have Keandre Lambert-Smith, and then all of their, and he hasn't even been a world beater, by the way. He's been okay production-wise. All of their production comes from running backs and tight ends in the passing game. Drew Allar has played well, but his numbers aren't great because he has nobody to throw to. I've watched their film enough times to see covered receivers, and when guys are open, them dropping easy open passes. They are going to run into a serious issue when they play Ohio State and when they play Michigan, when they can't pick up the ball, pick up yards through the air. Their receiver room is worse than Notre Dame's. I'm going to go as far as to say that. So I'm not afraid of Penn State. I think that they're a good football team. They might be able to overcome that, which is why I still place them in the top 10. But I really am more afraid of Washington because at the very least, if they play bad defensively, I know that they can score a touchdown in 2 minutes when they're called upon to do so. I could see them if they were down by 2 scores to get back into a football game with limited time to do so. They're that explosive offensively. I just don't think that Penn State does one thing good enough for them to be discounted on their bad receiver room.
You know what they can do, or what they could do?
What?
Run the ball down Washington's throat. So if you go to a neutral field, so, you know, we got our friends over at BetOnline. If you went to a neutral field today, Penn State would be favored by a touchdown.
I don't agree with that.
Well, just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean on a neutral field that they wouldn't have a 6.5 point spread on them. I agree with you. Saturday was not impressive, but you know what also was impressive? I mean, Joe, offensively, they had some crazy things going on. Wind was I think I was listening to the broadcast. Wind was 24 miles an hour. You know, like last year, we didn't say anything about CJ Stroud when they would go into Northwestern and look like dog shit and winds 30 plus miles an hour. Okay, hold on. Let me land. We don't say anything because it's like, hey, man, they kind of really can't throw the ball. Okay, I'm with you. So why can Ohio State from a year ago get that pass and Penn State can't?
Because that circumstance was weather related. So we knew that they would recover.
25 mile an hour winds. It's 25 mile an hour winds now.
But I'm not giving them a hard time because of one game. It has happened every single game this year that they have not had any production from their receiver. Every single game they have had problems at the receiver position. They don't have a guy. They don't have somebody that can make a big play when they're called upon and need to. And they don't have any receivers that I think could even take over a game. I just think that receiver room is really, really poor, and it's going to hurt them.
Elks, I've been in 7 hurricanes in my life, 2 Category 5s. 50 plus mile an hour winds is not hurricane stuff. Don't bring up that word hurricane up in here. I don't disagree with you, but one thing I do know is Washington would run the ball. I mean, Washington would get the ball run down their throat. I feel good on that. All right, here's my top 10. I didn't make a change this week, Joe. All the shit that I talked, I was a little ninny baby. You know, I don't know what I was thinking. I just don't. So here's my list, and I'll give my examples as to why. Georgia remains at 1. Michigan, Florida State, Ohio State at 4, Texas at 5, Penn State at 6, Oregon at 7, Washington at 8, USC at 9, Bama at 10. Go ahead and tell me why you hate that I have Alabama at number 10.
Yeah, the rest of your list is completely fine. I do want to have a discussion on the Georgia-Michigan placement because I think it's a good conversation in a second. But Alabama does not belong in the top 10. They don't. They have benefited from Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss not showing up, and they haven't done anything else this year.
Did Lane Kiffin and them not show up, or did they shut him down?
I mean, we saw the play calling. That was a horribly coached game. But even if they have some serious deficiencies, that Alabama team is going to lose another game or 2.
I don't disagree with that.
So they shouldn't be number 10. There's more teams that have done more impressive things, like Washington State, who has beaten 2 Power 5 teams, and one of them is ranked, and one of them was ranked.
Joe, I know you love Cam Ward. I know
nothing to do with that. They have a good resume.
If Washington State and Alabama teed it off in Council Bluffs tomorrow, Washington State ain't never seen nothing like that defensively. And they're not going to.
Washington State has the defensive line.
No,
so maybe not take out of their run game, but slow it down. And Jalen Milroe can't throw the ball.
But Joe, here's the truth, though. Y'all people out west keep saying they got good defensive lines, and then all of a sudden, I watch teams like Washington. I watch a team like USC, by the way, get their cheeks clapped up front defensively.
I've never said USC is a good defense. We're talking about Washington State, though. We're not talking about Washington or USC. We're talking about Washington State. The only way you're beating Washington, you need to score points to beat Washington State.
Okay. Well, you know what? I do think that Alabama in that second half against Ole Miss offensively found a rhythm. They scored 24 straight points or 20.
That's the most they're going to score all season.
Okay. So
that Ole Miss defense stinks.
41.
That Ole Miss defense stinks. We saw that, 2 days ago.
Okay, and who's Wazoo played? Name them.
They've beaten Oregon State.
That's the number one.
They've beaten Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Those are still quality wins.
Not a great football team. They're not.
They're still quality wins. I don't think that Ole Miss win is as impressive as that. Ole Miss win is propped up by them beating LSU.
Joe, I mean, technically, Ole Miss could win the West. They're not out of it.
Then why is it Ole Miss ahead of? I'd rather have Ole Miss over Alabama. I know that doesn't really make sense because they lost to Alabama.
I do think defensively, there's got to be something to be said about what they've done the last 3 weeks.
I will concede that they have
They've given up 3 points. They've given up 10 points, and I think I don't remember the final score against Mississippi State, and then I think they gave up 7 points. Forgive me if I'm wrong there. I mean, Joe, they're only giving up single digits. And the reason shit went chaotic. So let me give an example, okay, of why I think this defense is just on another level right now. They blocked a punt, gave it to the offense at the 1 yard line, and they couldn't score. And they keep coming in rotations and waves and locking people down. The reason, you know why it didn't happen against Texas, Joe, at the end of it, they didn't have an answer. I think the Arnold kid has gotten a lot better. The left boundary corner, I don't think anybody wants to throw the ball on Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think that front seven is starting to get rolling. They could go – look, now, here's the crazy thing, and here's something I'm going to completely contradict myself. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I think A&M wins Saturday. But I had Alabama so high, and from what I've seen from that defense, I do think that they deserve to be there. Now, if Alabama does lose, we got to start having a serious conversation about Miami. Like,
yes,
I think we have to start having a very serious conversation about Miami. Now, let me tell you something. I had a very long debate with myself in reference to putting Miami at 10.
See, I would rather do that over putting Alabama there. It's less of the debate of Washington State versus Alabama and more of the debate. I think that there are 4 or 5 teams that the argument can be made for that have been more impressive consistently on both sides of the football in every single game that they've played.
I like A&M this week.
I do too. That's why I think that Alabama is going to finish with 3 losses this year, and A&M is going to be one of the first ones.
They might.
You know what? I think that they're going to lose to Auburn. Like, go get pissed if you want. Alabama, I think that they could lose to Auburn. Auburn's played them close with worse teams.
No. Auburn had teams that could throw forward passes.
That's true. That's a good point.
Like, bro, here's what we're finding out about Peyton Thorne for just a quick second. Can he run a little bit? Yeah. But TJ Finley was a better quarterback than he was.
Yes.
Okay.
Part of the reason why I'm saying that, though, is that defense, that Auburn defense gave Carson Beck some fits. And I know we talked a lot about Georgia and their issues they're dealing with right now on the last show. But, I mean, if they can do that to Carson Beck, what are they going to do against Jalen Milroe?
Do you want to have that Michigan-Georgia conversation?
Yeah, I want to talk about this.
All right, let's talk about it.
I made that move because I think that Michigan has shown me on a week-to-week basis, despite sleepwalking through some games, that they are the most well-rounded team. I can't pinpoint what their issue is, what their hole is. I think Georgia has a hole, and all their hole is, you're good. All their hole is, all their issue is that they've been dealing with injuries. And I don't know if they can totally overcome that. And I think that Michigan has been the most consistent on a week-to-week basis.
You know why I didn't put Michigan at number 1 today?
Why? Because
J.J. McCarthy has a game out there this year where he threw 3 picks.
Against Bowling Green, yeah. But that's his only bad game this year.
Well, Joe, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but, we put all these other quarterbacks on a high pedestal, and by God, if they have an off half or an off quarter or whatever the frick they have, why doesn't J.J. McCarthy and Michigan get that same ridicule, if you will?
Well, I think that they did against Bowling Green, but I just think
Joe, we didn't come in here on Monday or Sunday and talk about Michigan and J.J. McCarthy against Bowling Green.
Because it's against Bowling Green, and sometimes you come into those games thinking, I'm going to kick the crap out of this team. I'm going to throw for 400 yards, and then you press a little bit too much. I think he's not fully matured as a quarterback.
Here's what I'll say about Michigan. I thought that their game this weekend was highly impressive. They looked so freaking good. Their offensive line finally started to, came to play, and when the lights got a little bit brighter, right? overall, I think that their front seven is not getting talked about enough. I don't mind you having Michigan at 1. I don't mind anybody not having Georgia at number 1, depending on who you put there. I saw an AP voter today put Texas at number 1. Get out of here with that, you Rudy Poo.
No.
Okay.
No.
But there does come a point where I agree with you, but I do think that there's something to be said in reference to if any other team in the country would have the injuries that Georgia would have had, they might have lost Saturday. Like, yes, a lesser team would have lost against South Carolina a couple weeks ago. They are yes. It is tough. It is tough in general in a Power 5 conference to win games in general. And they continue to find ways to win. They got Mahonky back. This is the first time I can say Lad Mahonky all season. I'm excited to say it. But you know what? I can't believe I got to stick up for your poster boy. Joe, there's not a player in the country that can cover Brock Bowers. Not one single person. By the way, did you see Big Game Boomers?
Yes, I did. That was hilarious. Good bit.
Brock Bowers for all of them. There's not anybody in the country that can stop him or contain him when he gets going. And I got to be real with you. Carson Beck nutted up in that second half and grew right in front of our eyes. People bashing on him, we watched 2 completely different games. You know, you want to see the stat line. You want to see him throwing for 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, maybe have him run in. But we completely watched different games. I thought that he grew up. He got popped back-to-back plays, and you know what he said? I'm going to find 19 and get the hell out the way. Auburn, look, there are games in this sport, the sport, Joe, that you and I love the most. There are games in this sport. It doesn't matter how good or bad the other teams are. Rivalry games are rivalry games for a reason. They are. And I'm just not out on Georgia yet. I'm not out on them yet.
I'm not out on them, and I'm not saying that moving them to 2 means that this is going to be the start of a slippery slope where they start to collapse. I agree with you that it is proving to me that you can come out with victories in situations where you're supposed to lose. That, to me, is a testament to the coaching. They have the best coaching staff in college football right now, and there's not even a debate about it. There shouldn't be a debate on who's better than them. But at the same time, I just feel right now with their injuries, with the holes that they have in certain position groups, that Michigan, when they turn it on, are going to be really hard to beat. And it's going to be hard for Ohio State and Penn State to beat them. And that needs to be the defining moment for them, is how easily and how dominantly do you defeat them. If they do that in both of those games, I'm going to feel pretty confident putting Michigan at the number 1 spot.
I don't hate that.
What was the face you were making, by the way?
A Miami booster just sent me a message. He said because I would put Miami, if I put Miami in he DM'd me on Twitter, says if I put Miami in my top 10, that he'll let me eat free at his restaurant.